Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you have yet to subscribe to this channel, please do so. Today I wanted to share with you 5 cards I made using the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit for April 2018, as well as a couple of add-ons that I got because I needed to have them. And they are the Shake Your Bones stamp set, as well as the Decorative Edge Fancy Die. Now don't read me for this, but I honestly thought that Edge Fancy Die was a banner. But apparently I'm kind of slow, so yeah. That said, that beautiful Decorative Edge Fancy Die inspired this first card, so let's jump right into it. I pulled out some Strathmore watercolor paper, and I pulled out my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. The plan for this card was to make a dusk card, you know, like if you were at a festival and you looked up at the sky right around dusk and you saw those beautiful blues and oranges and yellows and you just felt like you just had a really fun day at like the park during a festival. That was what I was aiming for. Now, I don't know what happened here. Like, I don't know if maybe my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers are just better suited for darker backgrounds, or if I just didn't deposit enough color onto my panel, but I was very, very disappointed by just how this was turning out. Like, the ink wasn't blending properly, it wasn't saturating my paper with color the way that I wanted it to. It just, I don't know, it started kind of looking like an ocean when I wanted a sky, and I was so sad by it. So instead of trying to just make that work, I blasted it with my heat tool. So that way if I went over it with another layer of Zig markers, my markers wouldn't get messed up from the water. But I just decided to stop using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers to make this fantasy happen. I instead just went for my Crayola watercolor set and went to town with those colors because Crayola did not let me down when I was 5 years old, and this surely isn't letting me down now in my 20s. So I just wanted to make this work. So I went over the yellow parts of my panel with the yellow that the set comes with and the blues with the blue, and then I went ahead and just blended that down, and as you can see, this started giving me the feel and the look that I was really going for, and I was super ecstatic to see it. So thank you, Crayola, for making this happen. You guys definitely withstood the Strathmore watercolor paper. So after I was done getting the blend to where I wanted it, I went ahead and I just hit my panel with my heat tool to just get all that color set and not runny and really beautiful and vibrant. I went ahead and die cut some paper using that beautiful fancy border die that came with the stamp set. This was actually one of my favorite things that came with this set. I also went ahead and I cut some paper out using the Decorative Edge Fancy Dies. The paper that I'm using is from Paper Source. The border is made from fuchsia paper and the banners are made from Clover green paper, sunshine yellow paper, papaya orange paper, pool blue paper, and another strip of fuchsia paper. I did this because obviously I really thought this Decorative Edge Fancy Die was a banner. So when I saw it, I was just like, oh my god, that's the card I want to make. And long and behold, apparently it's not a banner, pero we gonna make it work. So here I am adhering down those papers down to my panel. I have to admit, I had the toughest time actually trying to glue these down to my paper. Here, I figured, like, what if I tape it down to the back? Will that work? It didn't. That's the newsflash there. It just didn't work. I ended up having to go back with my tape runner and try to glue that down even more. It was a tough time. And again, maybe I just wasn't having the most creative luck, or maybe the universe was just like, we're not gonna let your fantasy come to life. But we worked against the grain here and we made it work, because listen, when you have a vision and you have an aesthetic you're trying to go for, nothing's gonna stand in your way to get it to look the way that it's supposed to look. So here I am doing exactly that. After I'm done taping down all those beautiful banners down to my panel, I'm also going to glue down the border around my card. Next, I'm going to take my ultra black matte cardstock in 170 pound weight from Paper Presentation. I absolutely love this stuff. It's so matte and it's so black. And anytime you heat emboss anything, particularly Ranger's Gold Heat Embossing Powder, it shows up so vibrantly that I just need it all the time in my life. From the stamp set, I'm going to take the words Hola, Bailemos, and a couple of the flourishes, and I'm just going to heat emboss all of that and then pop it up using some foam tape down to my panel. And finally, I am going to adhere down my panel using some more foam tape onto some Simon Says Stamp Island Blue cardstock. I really wanted to make sure that these cards were actually going to be very colorful and vibrant and not necessarily the like super clean and prim cards that I normally make. So I went ahead and I did not shy away from the color. Not this time. I was gonna make this holiday proud. Or at least I felt like I did. So that was my first card. For my second card, I'm going to use the Shake Your Bones stamp set to stamp down a lot of the flowers, or basically all of the flowers that this stamp set came with. And I pulled out my Moss Hero Arts ink, which I've gotten in previous kits, as well as the ink cubes that actually came with this stamp set. So I'm using the Fiesta Yellow, the Fiesta Red, and the Fiesta Teal to like actually stamp down these stamps. I'm going to take the Sugar Skull and I'm going to stamp that down with some teal. I'm going to take more of the flowers and I'm just going to alternate. My goal here was to just make a patterned paper or some type of patterned print, because I had seen a lot of this done with the regular stamp set. So if you don't have the add-on Shake Your Bones stamp set, don't worry about it. You can honestly use any of the images that come in the regular stamp set to do this sort of technique, and it's not going to cost you anything else. Promise. But yes, I definitely wanted to play around with those sugar skulls because I love sugar skulls. I personally would get another tattoo of a sugar skull if I could, but we are broke out here. I'm also going to pull out the Mold Wine ink cube from Hero Arts, and I'm going to just get that bolder sugar skull stamp stamped down as well. I wanted to use both, although looking back on it, you don't even get to see a lot of that stamp, so it didn't really matter. To give this card more of a card feel, I grabbed the 2 skeletons that came with the Shake Your Bones stamp set, and literally the entire reason why I even got that stamp set. And I had already pre-colored them with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. Then I took the purple paper that comes with the kit, and I cut the paper down to a rectangle, but I made sure to tape glue those 2 images down to this paper before I cut it, just so I can get a little bit more of a marker of how much paper that I need, because again, I am just spatially challenged, guys. I probably would have cut this panel to be a lot smaller than it needed to be if I had to just eyeball this, so I'm really happy I did this. After I'm done and I'm happy with the size of the rectangle, I am going to pop this up with some foam circles. Then I'm going to take some extra Decorative Edge Fancy Die Sunshine paper, just extra dies that I had lying around, and I'm gonna actually do what this paper or this die was meant to do and give my little rectangle actual edge around it. Now, I honestly know that this card was already really busy and it did not need this, but me being the most extra person that I am, trying to live my most extra life, went ahead and made this extra busy. So that's what ended up happening. I don't regret it. I honestly like the way that the yellow comes across with the purple. They are complementary colors, and it honestly causes the images that are on the purple to stand out a lot more against the printed background. Because we're not done with this and we still needed a sentiment, I went ahead and I stamped the sentiment "Friends Until the End" on some ultra black matte cardstock, and then I just heat embossed it with some white paper source embossing powder. I raised that up with some foam circles, and because we're not done with the color, folks, I then adhered this panel down to some orange peel cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. And again, because we're still not done, I went ahead and I pulled out my Nuvo crystal drops in the color Caribbean Ocean, and I just added a couple of circles to this card because you can never go wrong with enough embellishment, at least. Well, that finished off that card. For my third card, I wanted to make another pattern paper, but solely using the Fiesta Time stamps that are found in the main kit. I also wanted to use the Fiesta Red, the Fiesta Yellow, and the Fiesta Teal to create a nice variant. So I went ahead and I took the Fiesta die, the Fiesta stamp, and I started stamping that down in different colors. And I love the way that this turned out. It was this card that made me realize that if I wanted to take those stamp ink cubes and I wanted to do like some second and third generation stamping, I would actually get such an amazing gradient. So I could have probably taken this card and done Fiesta in red and then gone ahead and done a second generation impression, then a third, and I would have had an amazing gradient, and I could have probably done that down the center with each of the ink cubes, but I didn't do it. I think it's a great idea if you want to make a card that you needed to make multiples of but didn't have a lot of time. It's definitely one of those things that you can do. And beside it, you can obviously just use the time stamp and do the same thing. I think that would be really interesting. It's an interesting concept, and you don't have to spend a ton of time doing it, so it would be really quick. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm not sure why I didn't do that, but anyway, I was really satisfied with how this came out. Once I was done getting all of those stamped impressions, I pulled out my moss ink cube as well as my shaker bone stamp set, and I pulled out the musical notes that are on that set. You honestly don't need to do this, and I kind of regret the fact that I did it because I liked the way that those three primary colors looked against the white panel. It didn't need all of this. It really didn't. But it is what it is. It was what I decided to do. I then pulled out that beautiful blue paper that came with the kit, and I took an image that I had already pre-colored that I had sitting around, and I decided to make a fishtail on the blue paper and then adhere the beautiful skull lady down to this paper, and then I used some foam circles to raise her up. Again, I don't think I actually needed this, but if you do want to use this and you don't have the shaker bone stamp set, using the mouse image that came in the kit would work just as well. Honestly, it might give this panel more of a softer look and less of a Dia de los Muertos sort of feel. To round off this card, I figured I will take some of those decorative edge pieces of paper that I'd already had lying around in the shade Clover, so that way I can tie together the color of her dress to the actual card a little bit better. And again, I liked where this was going. I liked where it was at. I don't know why I didn't stop here. Again, sometimes I just don't know how to edit myself. I adhered this card down to some Island Blue cardstock from Simon Says Stamp because again, I wanted to do some more color. To round this card off, I put Party Till You Drop, which is in the shaker bone stamp set. Honestly, I could have probably just done Fiesta Time in gold, and that would have been a great sentiment. I probably could have done that on black just to make it stand out, but I didn't. To actually finish off this card, because again, another busy card for another busy person who's just a little extra, I took my Nuvo Drops in Caribbean Ocean, as well as Berry Red, I believe it's called, and my green Nuvo Drops, and I just decided to add a couple of embellishments. For my next card, I realized that I still had some Sticklo Sugar Skull dimensional stickers in my stash from last Halloween, which I swore I was gonna use and I never did. If you want these stickers, they go very well with the stamp set. You can find them in Michael's, or you can find them at Joann's Fabric. You can honestly find these online. They aren't really difficult to find and they're extremely cheap. I just happened to have them in my stash, and while I was looking for materials, I happened to stumble across them, and I figured this is a great opportunity to use them since I didn't get to use them last Halloween. I took the green paper that came with this kit. I just made a diagonal piece with just some scrap paper to give this entire panel a little bit more stability. Then I adhered my card down, or my panel down, to some white cardstock, some Neenah Solar White cardstock to be exact, and then I pulled out that beautiful Sticklo dimensional sticker that I got literally at Michael's last Halloween, and I just stuck it down to my card. Then I took the sentiment from the Shaker Bones stamp set, and I think it's the Friends Until the End, and I just decided to heat emboss that with some black embossing powder from Paper Source. And to finish everything off, I just took my Caribbean Nuvo Drops and just put some Nuvo Drops wherever there was a circle to give my flowers a center. And I really love the way that this came out. I loved it so much so that I actually made 3 more cards like it. I see nothing wrong when you have a kit like Hero Arts and you just have things in your stash that will come together. I really see no problem with doing that and bringing it all together. For my last card, I needed to make a galaxy background, guys. I have a problem. I took a Circle Sizzix die and I made a circle from some Strathmore watercolor paper, and for this I actually did use my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I'm convinced that these markers are excellent for darker backgrounds but not really for lighter backgrounds. And this didn't let me down. I love the purple that this gave me. I wanted more purple for this because the dancers that I used for this card were painted in orange. I'm going to take some ultra matte cardstock and I'm just going to give this circle a bit of a ground or foreground. I'm then going to take a piece of scrap paper that I have lying around, cut to 5 by 4 inches, and I'm going to just cut a little square from the purple paper that came in the kit, and then I'm going to glue that down to my base, but in the shape of a diamond, so just tilted. And then I'm going to tape down my 2 skull people to my Strathmore. But this time I learned my lesson, so I glued them down using some Tombow glue. We weren't going to play these games. Nuh-uh. I took some more papaya paper and I cut it using the Decorative Edge Fancy die to just give the top of this card a bit of a, just a bit of a decoration on the top. Then I raised up my circle using some foam circles, and then I was ready to adhere my panel down to some Beet paper from Paper Source. I thought that this beautiful, beautiful purple card was going to do great against like some orange and maybe even some black. This is probably one of those cards that I would make for Dia de los Muertos shamelessly. I then took more of that ultra black matte cardstock and I just heat embossed Bailemos at the bottom because I felt like that's what these skeletons were doing in the middle of night. They were just dancing together, and I really love the way that this came out. This is probably one of my favorite cards from the stamp set, or that I made. I then took just some black Nuvo Drops in Ebony Black and I just decorated the top. And lastly, to finish off this card, I took just some Wink of Stella marker glitter stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I just went over their garments with it because I wanted them to shine against the night sky. And after I was done with all of this, I just adhered it down to a white card base using some Neenah Solar White cardstock, and that finished off my card. I'm really, really happy with this card. I think it's so pretty. And maybe it's just because, you know, it has a galaxy in it, so I'm super biased. These are the 5 cards that I made using the Hero Art April 2018 My Monthly Hero Art Kit. Again, I went ahead and I used a couple more of those stickers that I'd found in my stash with that beautiful fancy border die, and I just kind of wanted to show off what that looked like really, really quickly. I also have some envelopes from Paper Source that I will probably be mailing these in, but those are the other 2 cards. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like